Hey, can everybody hear me in the back? Can you guys hear me okay? All right. Hey, I'm Major General Pete Gallagher. I have the distinct privilege of being the director of the network cross-functional team. And I'd like to welcome you to our Warriors panel today. How many baseball fans are in the audience? How many Kansas City Royals fans? How many New York Yankees fans? Raise your hand. It was a rough night last night, wasn't it? Okay. First time in Major League Baseball history that somebody hit for the cycle, 16-1. You know, I know General Willie and General McConville are in a really good mood today, okay? They're in a really good mood because the Patriots won last Thursday against the Colts, and you're going to hear about a quarterback today at the Eisenhower luncheon, and it's probably not going to be Drew Brees, okay? It'll probably, I'm sure General Willie will say something about Tom Brady because he always does. They're in a really good mood, and we're all lucky that AUSA is this week, because next week they're not going to be in as good a mood because the Patriots actually play the Chiefs on Sunday, all right? And the Chiefs are good, you know, they're 5-0 and they're on a roll, and that's actually my team. We have a treat for you here today, okay? We are honored to have then the batting order is going to change a little bit, but my battle buddy from Space and Missile Defense Command, Mr. Willie Nelson is here. He runs the Assured Position Navigation and Timing cross-functional team. We're also honored to have with us from the Johns Hopkins Applied Research Lab, Dr. Angela Dalton. She's been working at Johns Hopkins for about the last 10 years, and she has been working in the network space with our program executive office and some of our battle buddies up at Aberdeen Proving Ground for the last 10 years on a lot of network-related items. She's going to give us a glimpse into the future, and she'll actually be our lead batter here as we kick this thing off. She'll be followed by Mr. Nelson, who's going to talk to you about where we need to go with position, navigation, and timing, and then I'll kind of lean into the network piece and where we're going, where we've been to date and where we're going, and then I'm going to turn it over to my other battle buddy, Major General Dave Bassett, who is the Program Executive Officer for all things tactical networks. As we stood up this CFT about 11 months ago, we were already in the works of a team of teams approach, really pulling together a cross-functional team of teams. And some of my battle buddies are here with me that have been in that slog for a while. I'm privileged to have John Morrison from the Cyber Center of Excellence. I know Jim Mingus is around here somewhere because I heard about it, but his replacement, Doug Chrisman here from the Mission Command Center of Excellence are here representing TRADOC. And they've been in this fight with us as we're figuring out what to do about this network. They've been helping us shape and define where we need to go. And I'm glad to see you guys here with us. Also, our counterparts in the tactical space, we've got Brigadier General Anthony Potts here from PEO Soldier. A lot of what we're doing to make our soldiers and our tactical formations more lethal, we're getting that innovative spirit from Anthony's team, and Dave Bassett's providing that focused integration in the network and how it ties together. We've also got Mr. Weber here from Space and Missile Defense Command. His element out in Huntsville does a lot of things in space that the network is dependent upon, and we're working very closely with Mr. Weber and General Dickinson, Willie Nelson, and the team. And then we're also honored to have my science and technology teammate, Pat O'Neill here from Communications, Electronics, Research and Development Engineering Center, or CERDEC, up at Aberdeen Proving Ground. But most importantly, I have my new boss, okay? The Army Futures Command, Commander General Murray. Thanks for joining us here today, all right? So with that, what I'd like to do is kind of give you folks a little look of what's coming in the future from Dr. Dalton based on her perspective, and then we'll kind of frame it from there. So Dr. Dalton, ma'am, thank you for joining us, and over to you.
Thank you, sir. Can everybody hear me? Okay, great. I get the fun part. I get to talk about the future network that the network cross-functional team, the Assured PNT cross-functional team, they're going to be creating over the next many years, and some of the technologies and characteristics of that network that are going to lead to your future network. So you can look around this exhibit hall, and one of the things that's really evident looking around is that the battlefield of the future is going to be incredibly data rich. So there are sources of information all over the battlefield that can provide incredible situational understanding, and we need to have a network that enables, through capacity and orchestration, the ability to get that information to decision makers where it's needed, to warfighters where and when it's needed. So some of the technologies that are going to be important enablers in that space are data-centric networking technologies, content-based networking, content distribution networks, emerging technologies like named data networks, and the orchestration and management techniques that will enable networking that's really data rich. We also can look around and see that interoperability is a critical element of the future network. So I think I heard that there's something like 80 countries represented here. So we have coalition partners, we have joint partners, we have legacy systems, we have incredibly heterogeneous sources of data across the network. So interoperability is going to be a key characteristic of the future network. And that's going to be enabled through technologies that modularize and provide standardized interfaces that are really well defined so that we can introduce new technologies and interoperate across the entire network. We also know that our communication systems are a primary target of our adversaries. So you can bet that our communication systems in the future are going to need to operate in incredibly contested spectrum environments, denied GPS, and Mr. Nelson's going to talk about that, and just really limited and challenged and contested environments. And so we also have to manage our electromagnetic emissions and be cognizant that not only are our communication systems a target for our adversaries, but they also can be a wealth of information and intelligence for a very highly capable adversary. So some of the technologies that I think are going to be really relevant in that respect are some of the things that you see in commercial companies coming out in the 5G communications capabilities. Now, they're not directly applicable. We can't just adopt 5G comms, but millimeter wave and beamforming techniques can provide some directional networking capabilities, even using the light spectrum and Li-Fi technologies, free space optics and directional networking, and really more efficient use of spectrum. Finally, in the network of the future, we're going to have, is that better? Ooh, that's louder. We're going to have an advanced persistent cyber threat, and we need to be protecting and defending against that cyber threat, and even turning it around and using the information about the cyber threats to actually target those adversaries using networking techniques like virtualized network functions and network deception techniques. So all of those technologies, I think, will really help us defend against advanced cyber threats in the future network. So I'd like to talk about the future morphable mission network, where we can enable the exchange of the most critical mission data, even in the face of very dynamic mission conditions, system and environmental and threat conditions, where the network will adapt to the mission context and to evolving commander's intent, will reconfigure intelligently at machine speed, and not have the warfighter have to actually take the attention away from the mission to turn knobs and configure the network. Some of the machine learning capabilities that are really emerging may be applicable in that area. And that reconfiguration, that intelligent reconfiguration, needs to take advantage of all of the network resources and spectrum resources available and in an efficient manner. So that kind of paints a picture of the future network. And also being able to trust the messages that come across the network. So really getting into securing and protecting the data in the future network. So that kind of paints the picture. And I mentioned that the network constraints of the GPS-denied environment are going to be really, really important. And so I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Nelson, who's going to talk about the assured PNT.
Thank you. I think I'm mic'd. Can you hear me back there? Is this okay? Good. Meeting. That any better? All right. Well, good afternoon, everybody. It's a privilege to be here, and thank you again for the distinguished staff in the front who is going to help us answer those tough questions you brought. Again, I'm honored to be here with our other battle buddies working the CFT and the Futures Command modernization priorities. As you probably well know, of the 6 Chiefs priorities, there are 8 CFTs that have been formed to attack those modernization priorities. Both synthetic training and also assured positioning, navigation, and timing are those cross-cutting and cross-threading capabilities that are enablers, quite frankly, into what the other CFTs and modernization priorities are doing. It is no surprise to you all, I'm sure, that GPS is fundamentally embedded in darn near everything we do. I mean, it is everywhere. The military is no different. It is a key enabler and has proven to be a very decisive capability that we employ and use both militarily and you use at home. The problem is that makes it a very attractive attack landscape, of course. Why wouldn't you? And then there's also, it's just also because of its inherent nature, it's a very weak signal, and you're able to degrade or sometimes even deny that in the terrain and the types of areas where the military needs to operate. Subterranean, dense urban environment, masking from mountains, you understand. So it can be a challenge even when it's working fine and not in a denied or an adversarial type of thing. So why is that a priority? Obviously, weapons must work, and in many cases, those weapon systems and soldiers are trained that those weapons work in a certain performed way. And in many cases, that is embedded P&T, or positioning, navigation, and timing capability. So without putting up another constellation of GPS, which nobody's proposing of doing, GPS works well when it's working, and the Air Force is working their way towards M-code. The Army is fully behind that and supports that additional capability, and that's great. So what we're doing is looking across the Army and breaking what we call P&T into its 3 major components: positioning determination, navigation aiding, and then timing. And as we talked about earlier, timing is absolutely critical to the network. Without it, quite frankly, things start to fall apart. It is absolutely essential. And there are multiple technologies out there between chip-scale atomic clocks and other types of things that were mentioned to help maintain that type of timing. Crypto requires timing, for example. So I could burrow down in each one of these, but quite frankly, launchers require positioning data to perform their mission. Weapon systems such as aviation, even ground combat vehicles and missiles in flight have some type of positioning determination in those. So what we're doing is looking across the Army, through each of the laboratories, through each of the PEOs, and drawing those connections and seriously aligning those projects to that are the good hard work being done by the engineers in the lab. How does that transcend and move its way into an Army program of record, into its own capability as a P&T source, or a better IMU, or a better timing, and how does that then get incorporated into a weapon system, therefore making it a more resilient and a more capable platform. So that's what we're doing. We've had 2 S&T conferences, one last year, one very recently, where again, all the labs, all the PEOs came in. We start to draw those threads across, and that is a very key capability, or key responsibility of the CFT, all of us, to do that. And then actually helping these programs survive that valley of death. We've all heard about that. The number of programs that survive from an S&T project, both 1, 6, 1, 2, 3, and then actually getting into the 6, 4, and physically getting into a program of record that's dismally low. And our plan is to try to help increase that capability, get the hard work that these engineers and you all do every day into these weapon systems to make them more resilient. And then finally, innovation. That's the reason we're here. That's in many cases getting a lot of good information from you all. Help us. In many cases, we know how to build weapon systems and we know how to fight. We need the help from you all to figure out what's that better mousetrap, or what's that more better way to back up a positioning or a navigation aiding or even a timing. And so again, I break it down because I think everybody has an area within that maybe you've got a specialty area, or you've got a unique or innovative capability that can help in one of those areas. We're all ears. And so my final plug before I sit down, part of that reaching out to industry is we plan to do what we're calling an Industry and Academia Day in Austin, Texas, in the February-March timeframe. All my friends are invited. You are all invited. But the plan is to roll out our roadmaps. My goal is to share our technical roadmaps and program of record roadmaps with you. Give you, industry, the idea of where we're going. That will help shape your IRAD and make sure that we are seriously aligned in helping each other go. So again, the date will be coming out. We're working with the University of Texas and Army's Futures Command, and again, it'll be in Austin, Texas in February-March timeframe. Look forward to your questions, and again, I'm thrilled to be here, and I've been and visited a number of the booths. This is an incredible effort everybody's put on today, and thank you for everybody's hard work and support. That's all I have.
Yeah, thanks. So the reason Willie and I are teamed up is obviously he mentioned it. The timing is everything when it pertains to the network, right? And so, as we stood up, Willie, myself, and all the other cross-functional team directors, we started about 23 October of last year, right after AUSA. About 1 and 2 November, we all were brought to the bowels of the Pentagon, and we were given our marching orders by the Undersecretary of the Army and the Vice Chief of Staff of the Army. And then a couple weeks later, we started building this team to execute with focused integration, and disciplined innovation. Those were the kind of the guideposts that General McConville gave us, okay? We pulled together the team of teams, the requirements community, the acquisition community, the resourcing community, the test community, the operational community from FORCECOM and from the ASCCs out there, and we pulled together through a spirit of collaboration, okay? External outreach with the Army team, fusion, internal, down and in. How are we going to figure out threat-based market research to determine what's in the art of the possible for us to focus and then integrate this team to get stuff done, okay? And we're doing that with a very, very robust team of teams construct. So the network modernization strategy I'm focused on is to enable General Crawford, on behalf of the Secretary and the Chief, their intent as the CIOG6, the overall network strategy, is to have a network that's flat, fast, mobile, and protected. What does that mean for me? That means we got to have a network that our soldiers can depend on. That will enable them to have unified network transport from every base, post, camp, and station out to the tactical edge, okay? Integrated network transport. It's got to be assured to fight and win in a contested environment against a peer adversary. The other thing we're working towards is this common operating environment. Whether it's a command post, a dismount, a mobile platform, an aviation platform, where we have a common look and feel of decision-making tools that allow leaders and soldiers to understand and be able to communicate. Okay, so we're working on that line of effort. The third line of effort is joint and coalition interoperability, as Dr. Dalton mentioned. We've got a lot of work going on in the months ahead to fix our mission partner environment, and we're leveraging the Army service component commands and the corps to really work through this mission partner environment. Thank you. My voice is squeaking. Dave's going to make fun of me. All right. So where were we? All right. So, and the last line of effort is mobility and survivability of our command posts. So four lines of effort, okay? Executing very focused intent based on what we got from the Chief and the Secretary to make sure our formations are lethal. They're capable of fighting and winning in a contested environment, okay? So I figure out, based on the guidance I've been given, what we're going to do, and we're doing it through industry outreach, through a realignment of our science and technology portfolio, focused on those lines of effort. But then I count on my acquisition partner, PEO C3T, to determine the how, okay? There's a lot of consternation out there about what is the cross-functional team's relationship with the PEOs. How does the lash up work? And I will tell you, I don't think it could work any better, okay? If you start at the top, you got the Secretary, you've got the Chief. You've got the under, you've got the vice. Now we have a 4-star commander for Army Futures Command and the Army Acquisition Executive. I am the action arm for General Murray for all things network, and I'm counting on my battle buddy from the acquisition community to deliver capabilities with speed and precision to get the network that we need. And over the last several months, we've made great strides. We've incorporated advanced networking waveforms from industry into our software-defined radios. We've improved our ability at the tactical edge for some of our formations. We are now assessing the scale and scope of how we take it from a battalion formation to a brigade in various types of platforms. We are also moving towards a mission command environment in both the mounted and the command post, and we're going to be assessing those at NIE in the months ahead. And then, as I mentioned, in next April, in the Joint Warfighting Assessment and the Warfighting Exercise of the Third Corps, we'll be rolling out a coalition interoperability mission partner environment. And all that's happening, and we're also doing a pilot for our expeditionary signal battalions, where they're taking smaller, lighter, more capable kit than we have in the formations today. We're going to have multiple points of presence and really enhance our ability to thicken the network and provide alternative means. As we go forward in the months ahead, we're embracing NIE in November. We're going to roll in. We are going to scale this integrated tactical network to brigade-sized formations, and our intent is to start fielding formations in 20. And we're moving along with a new enhanced capability for our most tactical formations that are in the fight. Some of this capability is ready today. It's something we can adapt and buy and get in the formations quickly. There are other developmental items that I'm counting on Pat O'Neill, and I'm counting on you, industry, with your research and development to help us with the next ridgeline. The ability to counter that electronic warfare threat. That's why we're doing what we're doing. It's about fighting, it's about winning, but how we're going to do it, again, I'm counting on my partners from the Program Executive Office, and that's where Dave Bassett comes in. Dave.
All right, thanks, Pete. I actually wasn't going to make fun of your voice earlier, but now that you mentioned it, it's great that you're finally getting your big boy voice. So you can see there's a real partnership here between General Gallagher and I. And so we've got this tremendous amount of energy coming into the modernization area, helping to define really what the art of the possible is, and using experimentation to help drive solutions that become part of the art of what we can now deliver on the acquisition side, to take good ideas and technology and translate those into operational capabilities that our soldiers can employ, operate, train, maintain. You know, it's that end-to-end enduring capability that we have to go from good idea to delivered capability. And it's going to be those acquisition professionals, that team of trusted professionals, of engineers and logisticians, contracting expertise, all of the things that our community has spent, you know, decades learning to be good at, to be good buyers for our Army, and leveraging the 30 years of operational signal experience that General Gallagher brings to bear. And so I think that partnership with the CFT helping to define the what of our network modernization, and the PEO driving the how of building and delivering programs and capabilities, is exactly the kind of partnership that's going to be necessary to bring our network into the future. You heard earlier Dr. Dalton talk about technologies that are on the horizon over a period of time that is not defined in months, but in terms of years. And there's some exciting capabilities that are on the horizon that we want to be able to capitalize on and take advantage of in our network. Not all of those technologies are available today. Many of them are. It's going to take some time to integrate them and apply them to the network. And so when we this new approach to requirements is about having requirements that enable modernization and enable innovation, rather than necessarily using requirements as a forcing function. In the past, we used to think we could get the requirement exactly right at the start of a program and use that to drive the delivery of capability over a 30-year program. And when you look at, we talk about doing acquisition different, let me tell you how it's going to be different. We're not going to start with a perfect requirement. We're going to start with an idea of where we want to go based on available technology and capabilities, and then we're going to evolve with experimentation over time, driven by the cross-functional team, that allows us to deliver these advanced capabilities rather than being limited to what could have been a very limited idea of what technology was available when the requirements were written many years before. So we're going to have requirements enabling modernization rather than as a forcing function. And we're not going to start with a requirement. We're going to start with an intent and then do experimentation to evolve where we need to go. And that's playing out right now. It's playing out right now in our integrated tactical network, in our infantry brigade, our striker brigade, and our armor brigade combat teams. And we don't want that network to be the same network at every stage. We want to evolve the network, tailor it to each of those formations, and take advantage of technology as it becomes available. We're really excited about some technologies that can change the way we fight the network and deliver capability. Things like machine learning and artificial intelligence that can take tasks off of our signal soldiers and put them onto the automated system. That we can shift that workload and that cognitive load off of our soldiers in a way that makes the network considerably easier to operate and maintain. Sometimes today when a soldier says the network is too complicated, what they really mean is no one trained me on the network, no one gave me the opportunity to employ it, it's unfamiliar to me, and it feels complex and overwhelming. And so as we add these capabilities, we want to make sure that we do this in a cohesive way across all of the elements of what makes good programs. We got to be able to train it, we got to be able to sustain it, we have to be able to employ it. And that partnership that we're working together with the CFT is going to do exactly that. So it's an exciting time for the Army network. We have new software-defined radios and low-rate production, both for the Manpack as well as the leader radio. Multi-vendor strategies with really unique contracting that lets us bring on new vendors if we need to compete those two vendors against one another, both on innovation and on price. Those radios are being delivered today. By this fall, we're going to have the command post computing environment framework delivered and tested at NIE this year, a framework that we can evolve and deliver to for adding mission command capabilities in the future in a way that doesn't require a separate server for every mission command application. Two different versions of the mounted computing environment being delivered into NIE to give our soldiers choice about where we want to go in the future, but then once we agree on what that mounted computing environment software framework will be, that becomes something we can build on top of to deliver unified mission command in a way that we've never done in the past. And efforts going on inside the PEO that preceded my time that were all about automating network configuration and employment. We talk about unit task reorganization, a process which today takes weeks, and putting tools in place that lets it happen in hours or minutes. And I'm excited about how we're going to be able to demonstrate those capabilities, not waiting on one big program, but delivering it incrementally over time, because we're not just going to throw out the whole network all in one shot, right? It's a big Army and a big Army network. And so everything we look at, every vendor that talks to us, we want to know where those capabilities fit. How can it fit with what we already have in the field today? How can I add that capability over time? Because at every instance, the network has to work together and be integrated together, and PEO C3T provides the technical authority responsible for making all of those things happen on behalf of the CFT. So with that, I apologize for your voice joke. That was really terrible, but you taunted me into doing it. So with that, I'll turn it over for questions.
Honestly, the reason I lost my voice was, I was really worried about my Chiefs on Sunday because they were playing the #1 defense in the NFL, and I was cheering pretty loud, so I kind of lost my voice. That's my story, and I'm sticking to it, all right? So reality is I was concerned about the microphones here, and I figured my new #1 line of effort would be to fix the AUSA microphones within the network because it was a little muffled at the beginning. So I was trying to compensate for that, and that's a really lame excuse.
You sound really good now, though.
With that, we're going to open it up for questions, all right?
If I could throw in one more thing, General Bassett, refresh my memory. If people are looking for what has the CFT done for you lately, I mean, it's a lot of, we hear a lot of talk, and what's the action? So I do want to kind of bring something to your mind that I think we can claim as almost success, and that is the PNT community has always struggled, quite frankly, for years on how to construct a requirement for air. I mean, you need PNT. I mean, you need air. But what's the requirement for that? And that's not stated necessarily anywhere. You have a degree of accuracy, but PNT or GPS is a method to achieve that, not the requirement. So anyway, what I do want to do is plug both the TICM and the PM for PMPNT and TICM TACM radio. So we have been trying to put together for years a requirements document for assured PNT. It was a systems of systems approach. It was really big and really expensive, and it looked at how do you service the Army. And so instead, what we've taken is a very focused look at this, broken it down into sections of a mounted requirement, a dismounted requirement, situational awareness, et cetera, and really then put a DevOps approach to completing those documents. So what was taking years to develop a document now took months, and through the DevOps approach, getting both the warfighter, the engineers, the PMs, everybody in the room at the same time, we now have a 7-page CDD. Back to the point, don't prescribe the exact solution. A 7-page requirements document now is now on the desk for signature for the very first time of the United States Army for an assured PNT solution. That's for mounted, and the PM is working OTAs to get after that material solution right now, and dismounted is in work right now. So I'm just trying to give you a little bit of background on how the CFTs are operating, a little bit what's different, and some very, very short-term successes that we're real proud of. So again, my hat's off to the TechM and the PM. They did the hard work. We brought the teams together to help enable that, but we're pretty excited about those requirements. So.
Okay, so Willie got 2 5-minute blocks. I'm just kidding. But in all seriousness, we're now open up for questions. Any questions? Yes, sir. We have a microphone.
Philip Kwong with Intelsat General Corporation. I guess the question I have is, how are you going to affect the cultural change within your organization, because they're not used to going at speed? And I hear what you're saying, sir, about experimentation, but quite candidly, I'm going to anonymize the sources, but I've talked to some of your folks at the PM level and also at the contracting officer level, and they've said still the same thing. We execute, we don't write the requirements, so they're still at the requirement level. And so when I ask them, well, what's the right entry point for us to talk about stuff, like putting SATCOM on the helicopters, for example, which we're doing now. And they said, you need to talk to General Bassett and General Gallagher. And I said, really? I need to talk to General Bassett and General Gallagher? That's the entry point? So how do you affect that cultural change within your organization?
Yeah, so in my organization, you need to talk to a guy named Brian Wong, okay? He's my market research guy. He came in from the special ops community. He's leading our market research team with Pat O'Neill's team and with Dave Bassett's team. Major Brian Wong is the guy, okay? The culture change, it starts, if you go back to General Murray's comments yesterday about his 4 priorities, the number 1 priority was talent, okay? We are a very small team, okay? About, a couple dozen folks making up the network cross-functional team. The network is ubiquitous. Everybody everywhere in the Army has a network need that is not being met. I can't not take on all things to all comers. So first thing is I got to do is I got to build the right team, bring the talent in, and hand select experts from across the community. So I brought folks from the Special Ops community. I brought folks in from the National Training Center. I brought a former Maneuver Brigade commander with JSOC and Ranger experience coming out of a light division who's felt the pain and agony of the current systems, and he's going to drive that operational change. Culture starts with me. And if you heard General Murray yesterday, I will tell you the culture is shifting. Aberdeen is, there's a blowtorch going to the permafrost at Aberdeen, okay? We are bringing it in and we are lighting the fire. And the good thing is I got willing partners. Pat O'Neill is all about it. The science and technology team, they're going to measure their success on what they transition, not their good ideas and these science projects for life. What am I giving Dave that's going to deliver capability and let our soldiers fight and win? So Dave's team is committed to moving with speed and precision. I will tell you, I think the culture change is already happening.
Yeah. So I don't have to worry about what the headline will be tomorrow.
Frost?
Yeah, thanks for that. So it's really hard to think your way into acting differently, but we're going to act our way into thinking differently. And so this is going to start with action. We're going to demonstrate pace by actually moving at pace, and I think that is already happening. The specific example you gave about satellites on helicopters, there's a set of design choices that we're going to make. We may want satellite on helicopters, we may want to do it with some other way, and so as we go into experimentation, what I've tried to do is to make sure experimentation is not about demonstrating one way of doing things. It's about coming up with a couple of different ways of doing things within the network and helping us make an informed, well-thought-out decision without dragging it down into analysis paralysis that'll keep us from acting quickly. So like I said, we're going to act our way into thinking differently in this BEO. Permafrost.
I'm quoting a battle buddy. It's all good. Any other questions? We got time for 3 more.
Thanks so much, Generals. I belong to the French land defense industry. I am a retired general of the French Army. I was chief of the equipment office 12 years ago. How have you planned to make cooperating between the legacy systems and the new innovative systems? Is it inside battle labs? Is it inside other systems or other programs? And my second question is, how will you have the cooperation with industry, only US industry or allies industry? And how are you connecting the civil world innovation into your battle lab of the AFC?
So that was about 3 questions.
Yeah. So you can take the
so let
first
me take
stab.
the one about legacy. I'll take
Okay,
legacy.
yeah.
And I think you can help us out with some of the coalition operability. I think we're doing some really interesting things in that regard. So I think specifically as it relates to legacy interoperability, I will tell you one of the hardest things we do, and one of the things that is keeping us moving at a more measured pace, is a requirement to make sure that the systems that we field work with all the other systems that are in the field. And we have some translators that allow us to bridge from a messaging standpoint the older systems into the new. And so we're not going immediately to where the only mechanisms to interoperate with data is with the new capabilities, but we keep functions in there and we actually test previous versions of capability to make sure that we don't break interoperability as we go. One of the things that limits us is we're never going to field the whole Army at once. And so if we don't want to end up in a place where the things which are new can't talk to the things which are old, we have to take that into account at every step along the way. There will be some points where we could conceivably introduce, it's interesting, sometimes people will talk about interoperability problems, and really what they mean is mismatched capabilities. For example, if you field a new system that has certain capabilities and the old system doesn't have them at all, someone will say that's a lack of interoperability with the legacy system, when in fact really what you have is it's fully interoperable in all the ways the old system could talk. It's just the old system doesn't have the new capabilities yet. And so we're absolutely looking at that as we go. And we are being constrained in some ways to make sure that we take the time to do that properly. You want to talk coalition?
Yeah, I'll talk a couple things. One, I think the standards-based architecture approach where we have open standards and we share those standards for this common operating environment is important, and making sure that not only inside the Army do we get all of our systems talking to each other, but we can share those with our joint and coalition partners and share how we're designing this network design and making sure that information is shared. In terms of coalition interoperability, there's a couple things we're looking at is how we reframe the security boundaries and how we define what is our principal warfighting network. Because in many cases we operate at the secret SIPRNet, national secret network as our principal warfighting network, and in a lot of cases we maybe need to operate at the mission secret level with our NATO and other allied partners. So that's something we're taking a look at, and we're going to leverage the joint warfighting assessment and the warfighter exercise coming up. At the lowest tactical echelon, we're looking at securing the network but operating in an unclassified environment so we can optimize information sharing. So we'll use NSA-approved Suite B encryption, commercial solutions for classified, and then at the lowest tactical echelon, we'll be sharing information with mission partners, operating at an unclassified level with perishable information, where you don't have the luxury of analyzing everybody's security clearance. You got war fighters in the fight, you got a very lethal, very mobile fight, and they just need to communicate, and that's what we're trying to move towards. In terms of your industry outreach question, that aspect of it, we have targeted, focused industry tech exchange meetings based on our lines of effort, where we have solicited input from our industry partners in what's in the art of the possible. And then we did a call for papers, and industry responded. And in just over the past couple months, we've leveraged other transactional authorities and the Office of Secretary of Defense funding, rapid innovation funds, for us to put 7 systems on contract for us to do some experimentation and do some network design assessments over the months ahead. So does that answer your question, sir? Thank you.
I would add, though, it's a global search for technology, and so I don't think we're excluding any foreign companies from participating. We've looked quite broadly, and in fact, if you look at some of the tools that we've adopted in Mission Command, some of them did not start in the U.S.
Thanks a lot, gentlemen. It's very clear for me. If you have a look about very efficient network, connecting military and civil network and giving the ability to snipers to be free, have a look on the French pavilion to APICOM.
One place where we've done that is with a system called Direct that we use to provide to our National Guard forces that have to operate with the local civil authorities. And so those are the kinds of capabilities that have to bridge that gap and operate in the unclass and the class environment.
I think we have time for one more question. Any takers? Left side? Anybody on the left? Anybody on the right? Okay, well, hey, again, on behalf of this great panel of experts and teammates, and my other teammates that are in the front row, and on behalf of General Murray, my boss, and the Army leadership, I want to thank you, okay? And this event, AUSA, is absolutely critical. I mean, you can't walk any portion of the floor without seeing some software or hardware solution that's going to solve world hunger, okay? But we got to figure out where does it fit and how does it make our soldiers and our formations more lethal and able to fight and win in a contested environment against a peer adversary. That's the bottom line on what we're focused on, and that's what this partnership is all about. Again, I want to thank you. And industry, if you want to know what the do-out is, we want simple, secure solutions. Simple, secure, but more importantly, a solution to a problem, okay? Not just a good idea, but it's also got to operate expeditionary from the enterprise to the edge, okay? It's easy day. You guys can figure it out. We need your help. Thank you.